I always start my podcast with yay, but I actually am so excited to be here with Katie Patrick. Thank you for coming. Yay. We've been working on this for a while and trying to schedule it, which I take responsibility for delaying. Anyway, I'm so thrilled to even know Katie. We met online on our favorite LinkedIn to make amazing connections with brilliant people many months ago, and then had this beautiful, joyful few hours of like sharing the work we were doing. And I got to see some of the beginnings of what you can see behind Katie now, if you look on the video, and so much other work that she's doing. So I cannot wait for you to meet Katie and to hear about all the stuff she's working on and all the ways that she's changing the world. And I would say saving the world, because that is the name of Katie's book and Katie's podcast. And we'll hear about a lot more. So Katie Patrick, environmental engineer, green building designer, environmental behaviorist, so much connection on the whole behavior thing with me, and tech startup founder, and so much more. So tell us about yourself.
Oh my God, where do I start? Where do I jump in? Thank you for the wonderful introduction.
What's your favorite stuff you're working on these days? Let's go there. And how'd you get there?
Favorite stuff I am working on. I'm going to dive into the Earth Doctors. And when we were just talking before, I told you that I had to do a lot of like structural, procedural project management stuff. And I was just like dying to burst out, and gave myself 2 or 3 days to design activities for children that don't do environmental education, which is what most people do. They're like, well, let's just like learn about sustainability in the planet. Right. I don't do education. I focus on action design, which is something that people mix up sometimes. They think I'm like an educator, and I'm like, no, I don't do any education. Just
to pitch your podcast, I just today listened to one of the episodes that was about action versus education, because we don't realize how different they are. Like, and how you measure education versus action are completely different. And to recognize the whole metric side gives you a sense of what your product is and what your purpose is, right? So go for it.
Yeah. Like if you get 30 people and you give them an in-depth, put them in a 48-hour boot camp to learn everything about like climate and ecology and stuff, they'll come out knowing stuff. You can test them and they'll know stuff. But will they do stuff? That's where it falls down. It's called the value action gap. And if you want to get people to do stuff, you need to use more like habit design and behavioral psychology and gamification. And that's like a whole world. And you don't really need to do much education to get people to do stuff. The dog has returned. She wants to get up on her favorite spot, and now she can't because the little miniature eco city is behind me. So I love applying my design framework, my action design framework. I found like a series of key things that you need to do with a group of people to get them to do action and not just get lost in like learning and talking and learning, which is something that we are sort of a bit prone to in the environmental movement. And when I apply these to kids' activities with a particular like data feed, my imagination just explodes, and I love to do it. It's so fun for me. I look at different games and look at different environmental sustainability issues and think like, how can we get kids to engage in these, get the data, get them to trigger action, bring it home, bring it with the parents. And I just designed a couple. I did spin the wheel of action, which was really fun. Another one, which was a guessing game, Guess the Green Tech. Combining it with ChatGPT now, you can actually mock up games and with tools online where you can get instant games made. I made both of these games in under a day, really just in a few hours, and just for under $50, like real physical things that you can hold. Wow. So yeah, like you can make like really cool interactive tools, and you can just sort of like bypass the whole like doomy, gloomy, educational, like Earth's going to die stuff, which kids don't really like anyway. Do adults even really like it? And just go straight to the fun, sort of gamifying the action, which is really engaging. People love it. You can get people to communicate. And that was probably the most exciting part of my last few weeks. I was designing up those games.
Let's go back and let's explain what you're working on. So one small part of what Katie does, and she has an 8-year-old, 9-year-old. How old is your daughter now?
Now 9.
9. Okay. Who's like kind of the leader in this. So she's definitely chip off the old block, which is so cool. Anyway, there's this huge curriculum that Katie's been building as a side project to all of her other side projects. Oh, there's Mochi side projects.
Oh, I put it in the microphone. You can hear her pug grunts. Sorry about that. I didn't realize.
I didn't hear it. That's really funny. So there's a 40 lesson so far, because I don't believe that you're actually going to stop at 40 lessons, but a 40 lesson curriculum around moving moving us and our education system towards environmental responsibility. I'm defining it that way, but I'm sure you have better language around it. Tell us why, and I'm so lit up about this because I just dropped today my episode with Ruth Wilson, who is a nature and children network and researcher and writer and all that. So like, I am all in on this being about the children. They are the future. I mean, that's the reality. So go with that. Tell us about this curriculum, and then we can move on to some other things.
Well, I've designed this 12-week program. It's called Earth Doctors, and it's called Earth Doctors because when my daughter was really young, when kids don't really understand words like scientist or engineer, but they do understand the word doctor very early on in life. So as I was explaining her, 2 or 3 years old, I'd be like, because we're an Earth Doctor, so we're not going to use the plastic thing. And it just became this vernacular of how I would describe as being environmentally friendly. And then the vision came to me to host an Earth Doctors Club, like at the local school. And I can't even remember like the moment when I decided to do it. It just sort of happened very naturally. I am a huge fan of like futuristic eco-cities, like this idea of imagining the future world as this really positive space. I used to be a green building engineer. So it's sort of part of green building design is that you need to be able to imagine how cities and architecture will work in the future. Yeah. And it's always saddened me that in the environment and sustainability movement, we don't have more of that future imagining of positive spaces when there is a lot of talking about bad things that are going on in the world that seems to often dominate the conversation. So I thought, well, why don't I teach a class at the kids' school and I'll show them like pictures of positive eco futures and get them to draw their own version of the eco future. And I was worried about it. I thought, like the kids aren't going to like me. They're going to think I'm dumb. Like this is like dumb environmental engineer coming in, talk about like boring cities covered in plants. So I was actually quite nervous. And then it was the complete opposite of that. The kids were just so excited. They were like screaming. My daughter was like so proud to have her mother there at the school. She was like looking at me with these big eyes, like so happy. And the kids were just like yelling, like they were making so much noise when I would show them these futuristic green cities. And I started to like story tell it in this really like razzed up kind of animated way. And they got so like animated and loud that the teacher had to do like a timeout to get them to calm down. They kind of almost went like totally crazy by like, oh my God. And then they all got a piece of paper and they drew their own eco-cities. And I don't think I've ever had such a feeling of like I have just touched on like the God center of like what I'm meant to do with my life, or like I've just like tapped into some well of something amazing. And all these kids are basically drawing the positive future. And then I got them to write it down on a leaf. And then we put a leaf on this big sort of fake tree that says like, my vision for the ecotopia future is that all the streets are made of solar panels. And like, and they're just beautiful. The kids come up with their own stuff. They don't just copy the stuff I've shown them. They really like take parts and synthesize their own ideas. And they really actually got to understand the engineering principles. It's not just a creative imagination thing. It's like teaching basic thermodynamics, runoff, the water cycle, all this stuff. And then I just have this like
and
big
this was
pack
like
of like
little kids. Wait, this was kids in preschool?
I've done it for like not preschool, year 2 and year 3. So I did
like
all the classes in the 2 3. They're so good. Like their art is better than anything I have ever seen done by adults, except for like the big names like Vincent Calabor. Like I've never seen grown-ups in sustainability do work like this. I was so blown away.
It seems like it's because they're allowed, their imagination can run wild. Like there's no boundaries, there's no judgment. There's like, just be free to be imaginative. And what can come out of that is so colorful and so smart, right? There's no fear of being judged. Like everybody was in it for the fun of it and the growth of it and the brilliance of it.
Yeah. And I also found this real lightning bolt experience I had as a person I've spent my life designing environmental engagement experiences. That's like all I've ever done. And usually I have always only ever done this for adults. But then when I started applying my own design framework that I might design energy efficient software for to kids, like suddenly I was so much more creative. Like I was like, wow, like I would have never have designed this up for adults. So in a way, when I'm like in the kid's mind, like I'm out of the box as well. Like I would have never have made a miniature eco-city like this for like, say if Google employed me to do a community engagement project, like I would not think of this. But as soon as I think of kids, I'm like, eco-midi city, like obviously, like what else is there to do, you know?
So behind Katie it's so interesting because it's this beautiful physical representation that's beautiful, made with a lot of 3D printing and some cutting, some scissors and some glue and some other creativity. And it's bringing to life a lot of, if you follow Katie online, a lot of the imaginative digital creations of a futuristic city that's sustainable and that's regenerative and that's social and that's about community and about sharing food and sharing resources and sharing life. And it's all green. And it was the project brought to life instead of it just being done on a computer, right? So it's like a physical experience that the kids and the adults had. So tune in onto YouTube and whatever, and you'll see a picture of what the city actually looks like. And if you want to show part of that, like there's a building, there are a few in the world like this where it's layered with, the circular building that has the greenery that and the solar panels and stuff that make it a regenerative building, a net positive building, right?
Yeah, probably. I mean, there's lots of interesting buildings around, but not in miniature. Like I look everywhere for a miniature one, and so I had to use
but there's
AI.
like a few in the whole world, but that one has all this magic to it. So all of them do, yeah.
Yeah, and there's some really interesting psychology research. I interviewed one of the academics about his research on my podcast, which found that when people draw a picture of their version of like how they imagine like a sort of an eco-friendly future to be versus just passively read something that someone else has written, there's a huge jump in the flow on of pro-environmental behavior and even political advocacy. And I've hosted a number of these workshops now, and it is profound. Like we usually think that we need like knowledge and caring and money or gamification. What nobody is talking about, no one I've ever seen talking about, is get people to do a piece of art or make something like this, 3D, even more. And just by the act of using your hands, using that creative sort of maker ability that humans have, that flows into people's behavior and their advocacy way more than anything else. Like it's wild. It is the ultimate behavioral hack, is this.
It's amazing because you do behavior and how you can get behavior to actually change, which lights me up. So it just reminds me of that when my kids were in school, maybe 10 years ago in high school, they built these maker rooms, maker spaces. And the parents didn't do a good job of communicating why. It always seemed kind of like play spaces or whatever, like explanation, but it sounds like that's the magic, one of the pieces of magic to getting change to happen, to behavior change to happen. So talk more about these maker spaces and actually getting your hands on the change.
Well, that's what there's this thing called the IKEA effect in psychology, which is, if you make something, you objectively view it as better than if you just bought it. And so this part of agency, you're kind of practicing in a mini version. Oh, I can influence the world. Like I can actually make stuff. I can imagine something in my mind and then I can make it. And it just, I don't even know why, but it just triggers something deep in people that the other mechanisms of getting people to act just don't trigger that, just sort of don't trigger it as much. And I think it's something that like everyone in the environmental movement should be doing more of. And I'll tell you a little example where this came up. Like the project, I didn't end up working on the project, but I had a meeting with the energy utility people in Los Angeles, and they had some funding for a project that they wanted to activate teens. And their hypothesis was that if we can activate teens to get really into climate stuff, the teens will influence the rest of the family. And they wanted to develop a game. So they thought, well, let's make a game for teens, and then the teens will play the game and influence their parents to save energy. I don't know if that's like a good idea or not.
Sounds good to me, yeah.
But then like making games, like digital games especially, it's pretty hard to do. You have to be quite creatively talented and well-resourced and experienced. It'll probably even cost millions of dollars. But I said to them, like, why are you trying to make a game? Like you're an energy utility, like you're not a game designer. Why are you trying to make a game for these teens that maybe don't even want a game about climate? Like, why don't you get them to make the game? If you engage them, you invite them to a game making workshop. There are plenty of people that teach game design. Like that's easy to get. It's not that expensive. And then you want to ask them to make the game. And then when you ask them, you will activate that sense of agency in them. And so that was kind of my advice. Like I didn't know where it went from there. But I think it's like a really good sentiment to keep in mind. Like you don't have to make the stuff for people. You can create a creative environment and ask them to make it themselves. And then you'll really tap into that sort of deeper level of agency.
Yeah. I mean, the simple parallel that comes to mind for me is if And if you can get your kids in the kitchen to cook with you, they're more likely to eat what they cook than what you cook for them. And it's very likely to get them to put healthy stuff in there as opposed to just junk or things taste better when you make them yourself, right?
Or grow them. My daughter will most experience that. Like kids, if they grow the tomato, they will eat the tomato. But maybe if you cut them the tomato and put it on their plate, then they won't eat it.
Yeah, completely different. You're right. Okay, so I want to take one step back and really honor the work you've done and where you've come from. And I'll throw in a couple things I know about you, and then you can keep adding more so that we don't start from too big a whiteboard. Okay, you can hear the accent. Katie is not from the United States, but she does live here now. So we've got Australia, educated, I think you said college was Melbourne, and then ended up in Silicon Valley with this tech startup with a family and a daughter, and along the way has created a tremendous amount of behavior change and life-changing products and services. So, and focused on the psychology behind how you get people to change their behavior so that we can save the world, as opposed to the products that save the world, right? So have I got that right? Explain where you're coming from. So go from there. And what were some of your, what brought you here? Like I read a little bit about when you were 8, you said, I started having this need to save the world when I was 8. I don't know what happened when you were exactly 8, but in your book, you talk about some of the influences that were flying at you that were so difficult to handle, with a combination between, some of the stuff that you mentioned were, Nike labor practices and the way people treat people, and McDonald's was treating people, and the slaughtered whales, the nuclear testing in these magnificent atolls, the Amazon rainforest logging, and the lost dolphins. These are some of the influences that you seem to be aware of that I think a lot of children just weren't paying attention to. So take us through like a little bit of the story of how you became the amazing human that you are, that this is your purpose in life.
Oh, thank you for the kind words. And you already summed it up. I can't believe you summed up the years of my childhood. It's thank you for remembering. Not many people know that if they've read the book or even remembered like that section.
These are the
thank you for helping me
matter.
Feel seen. Thank you for helping me. Yeah. I feel seen. And just to sort of go back to how you started the question with this nuance that I don't know if people would have sort of gotten, that is quite a different approach I take to sustainability now to what a lot of people do, is that I'm really interested in supporting people who are trying to get out to a lot of people in the how, not the what. So you've got people that say like, oh, like I'm trying to sell like a composting bin. Mm-hmm. Or we're doing solar panels, or like I'm a green designer or a green architect, and they've got a very particular product or a service or a solution that they want to get out. Where I saw the vanguard or the big missing space is then in the how. Okay, I'm like, awesome. You've got there's every product, there's every technology. How do we influence thousands of people to adopt this? And that's really been my focus and my kind of like obsession to crack that. So I do come up with products and tools, but they're not the actual like green product. They're more like a card game or like a behavior chart thing or a system or like whatever it is. Also or like an app or an outdoor screen or a system of managing groups. They're like ways that you can get not just one person, but hundreds or thousands of people to start adopting this stuff. Hence why it's called behavior design and action design. Anyway, just so I could kind of make that clear, where do we go back? Where did this all start? Well, I was actually born in the...
It's unique, right? Like that's the sweet spot of actually changing and saving the world. It's that great products are a dime a dozen. There really are a million fantastic products out there that if you put them all together, could in a rather quick turnaround save our world and save our planet. But none of them are going to happen without you, without the work you're doing to actually get them out there and get them accepted and get them tested and get them to be part of an accepted new behavior, right?
Yeah. And hopefully not just without me. That's a big
hopefully not just
on my shoulders. Like if you think about something like those silicone like menstrual cups, like I remember when they came out like 15 years ago, and we were just like, my God, even like as an environmental people, we were like, it's so weird. Like, oh my God, we weren't even going to have them like in the magazine as a paying advertiser because it was like, that's too weird. Like, and now like it's not weird anymore. Like it took like 10 or 15 years to sort of break the cultural ice. to get people to do it. And it's not a thing about money, at all. Like it saves money if you use them. It just took the cultural adoption of a new product or a new practice. Yeah. So the problem is not like the product or the technology. The problem is often in people's their habits, their psychology, how they're thinking about things, like their social networks. And so that's really what we have to kind of learn how to hack into. But did you want me to start going more about my childhood?
No, well, fears and risk taking. Well, I mean, I love the story. When I started this up close and personal thing, it was all based on, it wasn't that long ago, it was a few months ago, but it was all based on the idea that these people that I was connecting with I just feel so honored and privileged to be in my life, to have in my life and be connected to. They typically had a story or a couple of stories, but a story that just launched them, that they remembered that this was such a point in time when I found my purpose. And I really was like wowed and in a place where I cared about our world and I cared about doing something good for the world and changing behavior in the world and that kind of thing. So yeah, what's the story? Like, was there a moment or that you can share? There might've been many stories, but give us one because they're always really inspiring.
Well, I think there was probably one pretty pivotal moment about 12 years ago that took me into the work that I'm doing now. But that was not what got me into environmentalism.
That's fine. No, but it shifted a chapter in your life.
But yeah, like I was, I grew up on a beautiful treed natural property in sort of the outskirts of Melbourne, Australia. And so there was a lot of trees, a lot of nature, and we had beautiful bird life. And yeah, like all the examples you mentioned about this would have been in the 80s. There was a lot of stuff on the news that was really distressing. Whales being harpooned. Like 6 o'clock at night, we're having dinner and there's literally like a whale with blood on it on the nightly news. There were these big protests about the Mururoa Atoll. And Greenpeace was really big in Australia promoting that. And Greenpeace even had like a little centre in downtown Melbourne that was connected to the Body Shop, which was this sort of slightly ethical skincare kind of I don't know if you have them in the USA. Yeah. They're really popular in Australia. And they were kind of like connected to this little like Greenpeace alcove that we'd go and get information on. Yeah, these messages of being, concern for nature, like it was very disturbing to me to see this happen. And so there was really just like no other question. It was like, this is wrong and we have to fix it. Like, there wasn't any sense of that there was anything else. There was no other thing to do but to do this. But I was always, I grew up in a very creative home. My grandmother was a fashion designer and my grandfather was a graphic artist from Germany. They were very technically trained. So I grew up around technical art, like how to do proper fashion drawing, how to actually draw like a portrait of a face, like how to draw fonts, how to do proper clay. My mother and stepfather were clay professionals. My father was a community college professor in ceramics. My mother she was a stay-at-home mother, but she was always doing different creative projects. But it was all very technically precise. It wasn't like a rambling, abstract sort of pot-smoking art thing. It was the opposite of that. Whatever the German precise sort of perfect craftsmanship is, it was like that. Right. So I just grew up with being able to design stuff as very normal and natural and having good artistic skill. That was
so nature and nurture, like your brain, that's how your brain works, right? Like it goes to creativity, but in a very organized, precise, structured, process-oriented way where you're creating something that moves forward and works.
Yeah, and that it looks beautiful, like in the proper sense. Like I'm not really into art that looks ugly but says something. Like that's not my definition of good. Like I'm sort of old school like that. Like I think, if you can draw, like just draw properly. Like just if you want to draw a face, just put in the effort and make it look good. You don't just draw some like weird stick figure and be like, oh, it's art. Like not everyone agrees with me, but I'm kind of old fashioned in that way. Like it's not that hard. Do a YouTube tutorial, like figure it out, But so I had this like big sort of like artistic kind of upbringing. And then that kind of like clashed, with all the environmental stuff that was going on, like in the world. And then I just sort of like happened to get really fascinated by like science and math and physics. And I sort of like lost interest in the art stuff. I was just like, oh yeah, it's just been there, done that. And had this sort of the STEM, science, technology, engineering, math was like really my world then. But then
it's funny because years later they added the A, right? So it's STEAM with the art in there, but it wasn't in there.
Yeah, and you don't have to do STEAM. You can do STEAM or STEM. I think that's slightly different, like which one. But then sort of, you can't like escape who you are, right? So then in my 20s and trying to work professionally as an engineer, like I was like so not an engineer. Like in my personality, I'm just somebody who just really loves to learn a lot of stuff and understand the universe. Like that sort of thing meant I could academically kind of jump through the hoops, and learn the stuff. But in terms of like working professionally, like it's so different to school. I didn't fit in. I actually got fired from my first engineering job because I kept crying, not because I was bad at it, but I actually was literally like crying at work. Like, oh, this is so boring. Like, I just cannot stand this. And I just had to do something that was more creative, more entrepreneurial. So I started a media company, environmental media company, and I made magazines, directories, events, videos, all promoting sustainability stuff.
What year is this? Because there was like a big shift, and you talk about it in some of your work, like around 2000, right? So
yeah, oh no, around 2000, I was at university then. So I spent the age from about 23 years old to about 30 years old, just making environmental media. So I had my couple of years working as a green building engineer, which was not a fit for me. And then I'd started my own company, and I was lucky enough to get venture funded by the Murdoch family. So I literally had like $1 million. Like this was after doing a very hard, fully bootstrapped, sleeping on the floor, no money startup phase. So I just want people to know that it wasn't all just lovely jumping from cash to cash. But anyway, I was 25 years old. I literally had like $1 million worth of funding and a green media company. And that was a very exciting time. It was a really fun time. And creating magazines, content, trying to ride this kind of digital media wave. But I learned a really hard lesson during that. That kind of business model has sort of gone extinct now. So this was around about the recession, sort of 2008, 2010, and when the social media and the internet really started to blossom, was that when you want to create really cool creative products in media, at first you just see like the creative thing, like, oh, we could have like magazines and websites and like all this cool stuff. Like honestly, all I ever did was sell ads. I literally just pitched for ads because we had investment money. We had employees. The company had to make $100,000 a month, otherwise it would die. And that's all I did. So I'm like trying to get out of like the engineering world to be more creative, start my own company. And then I'm like suffocated, locked in to this world with these intense financial pressures, having to come up with this $100,000 a month where I wasn't creatively stimulated. I wasn't intellectually stimulated. It was really
were
hard
hiring
work, really
people.
stressful, really hard work.
Yeah,
managing a team who were largely advertising salespeople. And I was like, how did my life come to this? Like, I didn't get into this so I could just sell ads all the time. And then, as my enthusiasm waned for a life like that, and then there was like the financial crisis and the everything going digital, the company just, it basically stopped making it fell short of its $100,000 a month goal a few times. And you just can't do that. Like unless you can make the money up somewhere else, like it's gone. So it needed to die and shift completely online. And then I moved to Silicon Valley because everything was like moving online. Like it was all like the app and social media, and Facebook was brand new. And
it's an amazing time. Like thinking about it, in 2008 time period, how much was going on? The shift to the internet, the iPhone had just come out. So people were living a very different life. The internet was and social media had not yet kicked in, but I think it was probably early stages of like MySpace and stuff like that. It's coming soon, right?
Yeah, I think MySpace had been around for a while. I think we weren't really using Twitter in any reasonable way until like 2010.
I think we only had like 40 characters or whatever the famous number was that, it was a different.
Yeah, like it was just kind of starting 2009, 2010. It was sort of like really starting to take off. Yeah, and the app was a thing. Suddenly the app was everything. Yeah. And if you wanted to get money, like venture money, everything had to be digital, and everything had to be in San Francisco or Silicon Valley. And so you had this big wave of people moving here because it was just like there was no other path. Like you either get a job as a teacher or an engineer or something like sort of normal life. But if you want to do anything like creative or wild or entrepreneurial, you must. Right. It must be a digital product. It must be a digital product, and it must be in San Francisco. It was basically just the way things were.
Ride the wave.
So, I mean, I'm also an American citizen. I was born here, so it's quite easy for
Oh,
me to go to the US. And I kind of always planned on ending up in the States anyway. Yeah, so I came here sort of following that path, and then I found pretty quickly that my Australian level skills were just so base for here. I'd gone from being the top of Australia, like this sort of golden girl. Like I was in magazines and on TV and I had this $1 million funded company and everybody knew me, and to just
okay.
being
Wait,
a
I have
total
to stop you
nobody
first.
to being
Wait,
a
I have to
total
stop you
nobody,
first. Wait, I have to stop you for a sec because Mochi is looking really hard for someplace to sit.
Oh no, she's got space. Don't worry, she's turning around. She's on the
Oh,
strawberry. She's on the strawberry. I'll turn my camera. There you go.
there we go.
See? She's fine. But yeah, then I had to shift here where everybody's, from Harvard, MIT, and they've got PhDs in computer science, and everybody knows how to code. I didn't know how to code. They've built networks here with their Ivy League universities, and the bro programmer thing. That's what guys are beating their chest, with Australia's very modest culture. And I just had no street cred. I had no useful skills. My web apps weren't very good. My platform kind of sucked. Like I was working with WordPress and trying to do these advanced extensions on WordPress. The only language I knew how to code in was PHP, which is super uncool. And also I was a female from Australia and I was over 30. I was 30 years old. I wasn't 19 19 years old Harvard dropout male, which was the cool thing. You have to basically be like a Mark Zuckerberg copy to have any street cred at that time. So I just had nothing. I was just at the bottom, the complete bottom. And I also had no money because my company had just died. $1
million disappears really quickly in Silicon Valley, right?
Yeah, well, that was in Australia. But I mean, you meant to spend investment money on building the company. But usually as a startup, you pay yourself as little as possible and you kind of build something. And so that's what I'd done through my 20s. And the whole idea is that it grows and it eventually turn around. But if it dies somewhere, you kind of end up sort of not where you thought you would be. Yeah, so I kind of got here and that was a really hard time because I was like, oh my God, I've gone from being at the top to being right at the bottom. And so I had to build skills and learn, and I wasn't going to go backwards to Australia. That felt super weird. I just had to go forward. So I'm going to get to this point in the story, which is the lightning bolt moment that you asked for. So I was just I started trying to write a book, put a presentation together, figure out, what my big next thing was going to be. I sort of felt like the platform I'd been building to do with my Australian work was really just sort of backwards. It wasn't as edgy as it needed to be to sort of make it here. It was more sort of simple. So I had to kind of just redo everything, my personality, my psychology, my skills. It all just had to be put in the washing machine and reformatted. And I watched this video about this company called O-Power, which gives you an electricity bill where it compares your electricity against other people. About the same time, when the Facebook dot, when you got red dots, in red dot notifications in Facebook and Instagram.
I actually don't. So go ahead. I should. So go.
But if you check Instagram, you get a little red dot that gives you a love heart, right? There was a time when that didn't exist. Those things have only been around for about 10 years. There was a time before that happened. So I remember living in a hacker house in Silicon Valley when that existed. I logged onto Facebook and there was a red dot and I was like, red dot. And then suddenly we're all addicted to the red dots now.
Right. And that's your point about behavior.
But then I was like, interesting, red dot. And then there were these little farm game, Farmville. Do you remember Farmville in Facebook? Yeah. And Farmville and Zynga were this really big thing. And I was, because I'd been learning computer programming at the time, I was trying to get data feeds of the environmental stuff I was trying to do. I'm well, if I want to do something cool here, and I want to actually make impact and not just be making content and selling ads, which it's what I was never ever going to do again. I need data feeds for all this stuff. I was how do I get a data feed from the shower? How do I get a data feed of how much electricity I'm using? How do I get a data feed of what the tree cover is in my city? And it blew me away that this stuff just did not exist. Cities do not have APIs. Even now, more than 10 years later, it hasn't gone that far. We don't often have smart meters that we could access our data from. Our ability to get this data is super primitive. Yeah. And also Jane McGonigal, she has a book called Reality is Broken, and she's sort of an advocate for game design. And anyway, all these messages came to me all at once. And I'm like, oh my God, this is it. This is it. This is it. Imagine if we could get data feeds from all over the planet for all
Ding,
of the
ding, ding,
stuff
ding, ding.
and develop
Opportunity.
the most ultimate like API that you could get the water from your shower and the cars and everything nested for yourself and your block and your group and company. And then we could develop like interfaces or tools that could be totally gamified with this real data. So instead of getting like a red dot notification when your friend messages you, you get a red dot notification when you like had used up too much, I don't know, hot water or something like that.
Yeah.
Or did it for waste. And then it could be gamified because the O-Power guy said when you compare people against other people, then like that's what changes their behavior. So if we had the data, then we could like compare people and then make like Farmville stop. And I was like, oh my God, oh my, whoa, 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 whoa. This is it. This is it. This is my thing. This is my thing. It was this huge, like, I was like, whoa, this is it. And that's where the name Hello World Labs came from.
Yeah.
Because I was like, what if you could like, hello world is what you write when you start learning a new computer program. Yeah, it's the first thing you write, like echo, whatever, apostrophe, hello world. But my kind of thought for it was like, what if I could develop the ultimate environmental, like earth sciences API where you had all of the data, my electricity, my trash, my water, tree cover, transport, air pollution, and you had it all in this like master data backend that anybody who was doing environmental work could interface with and then be able to build their ultimate sort of gamified app, like on top of this sort of data kind of back end. And that was my kind of dream. I was like, that's Silicon Valley worthy. That's cool. Like, yeah. But then I realized very quickly trying to like venture into these things. I started looking at waste and then electricity, that it's not that easy to do. Like it's maybe not even possible to do, my initial dream. So what I have done since then is just,
because you needed so many different inputs from so many different places, right?
They don't often even exist. Like they're not being measured. Like right. You can't really do it.
Because there's no competition in many of the fields that you're talking about, right? There's no electric competition. There's no waste competition. Like why should they bother to share data?
Capitalism doesn't naturally really support that model. It has to be funded by government or utilities or something like that. But when I had the framework, even though my idea of like the ultimate like environmental data API was not really viable, I started to hack away at different industries. So I started working on waste and I started to really understand like how is waste measured? Like what are the load sensors on the trucks? Like is there an API? What's the back end? Is it on the cloud? Like who are the players in the space? And then I got a contract with the University of Santa Cruz to actually build something like that for them. And I put it all together and developed this great a dashboard. Wow. And then you started to realize the real like limits as well to the industry. And you're like, oh, okay, I can see why nobody's done this before. There's a lot of research.
But it gave you a beta. It gave you something to start, a draft, something to start.
Yeah. Yeah. And so then I worked in electricity as well and started developing like electricity apps and tools with that. And then started looking at, urban greening and trees and looked at the data. And so I started to understand a lot of the computer science of how to measure things and put them together in terms of like GIS and maps and how the different electricity utilities work with like their APIs and just keep on developing like concepts of how to influence people, data-driven gamified concepts of how to influence behavior. And that's what I've done for the last 10 years. I just keep looking at the data, trying to figure out how to gamify it. And it just leads me into just so many different directions until I was.
But I think you're under.
I'll just teach kids.
Right. I think you're undervaluing or under sharing on the behavior part that you studied and that you were focused on learning, and that is the part that is so critical now. Like, how do we actually change behavior? And you've done all this work. A lot of it involves measurement and having the metrics. And a lot of it involves sharing and some sense of competing. So then it gets to the question of individual versus collective behavior change. So those are all like the part that I think that you do it that's even more interesting than all that you just shared is how much you've learned about behavior change and what it takes to change people's behavior. So go down that path a little bit. Like, what have you learned about people so that listeners can actually process what it would take for them to change or for them to help change others? Because it's so frustrating. Like, right. Like we think that we're trying to do something good. And then the people around us are just coming up with every excuse in the book to not be responsible, not be accountable, or some greenwashing and green wishing and all the rest of it. What can you offer us so that we can take a step of action forward that you've learned about behavior that'll help?
Well, yeah, it kind of flows on in a sort of an interesting path from this recent talking about measurement driven stuff, because I started with this very like measurement feedback loop centric way of thinking, and then had to be app and a UI UX thing. But the more I got into it and the more I actually started to test this on real people, like in the real world, and interviewing academic authors in the Journal of Environmental Psychology, which I also did because I really wanted to crack this nut. I really wanted to understand, like, if I show somebody like a traffic light that is their carbon emissions, like what's going on? Like, I really, really wanted to crack the nut and master it in every dimension. I found that I have moved way more qualitative. Like I hardly even look at the data or even do like that data-driven approach very much anymore. Like it's kind of in the background. But the reality of doing stuff in real life is that change happens between conversations between human beings. People copy each other. People talk to each other. People create trust with each other. They create groups. They create accountability and bonds. Oh, look, the dog is on my lap here. You're just going to show you. Like, she's here on the podcast.
Hi, Mochi.
Here we go, the podcast. And you've got to get groups of people together. So you can, for a start, you can give people a goal and just basically tracking progress towards a goal. You can get instead of my initial vision of the profound, like a multi-dimensional, like data API gamified cybernetic earth. Okay, instead of that, you can get a piece of paper with like 7 days on it, like you do for a sticker chart for kids, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then give a sticker and you take on a 7-day challenge. Like you have a beginning and you have an end and you take it on and you do it as a group. People tend to think they need really big groups. You need small groups.
Right.
Groups
Teams have to be small.
4 to 7 people. 5 people is the optimal. This is found in the behavioral science, and it's also what the military used. I spent like a whole day looking up military structures once to try to figure this out. And they have 5. Everything is a units of 5. So you have 1 leader, and then you have 4, I think they call them like riflemen or something, to 1 a rifle leader. And then those 5 combine together. And then there's another leader on top of that. So you'll have 11. So you have 1 at the top, and then he's got like 2 guys under him, and then those 2 guys have another 4. And then you get that guy. So they're our team of 11. And then you have 11 and 11 and 11, right? And then those 11 then have 1 above that, right? So if you've got a movement and maybe you've got 100 people, start structuring it like that. Get people into these little groups with leaders upon leaders upon leaders, all kind of layered up. So what you actually have is 1/3 of your people are actually in some sort of like group leadership position, which is like a totally different way to go about it. People think, oh, I need to have 100 people show up to my event. Yeah, cool. And then you have maybe 1 lecturer, like 1 guest lecturer to like 100 people. That's not the way to do it at all.
That's education versus that.
Yeah. Everyone goes and listens to a guest lecture and then they leave again. What if you get those 100 people on and everybody gets assigned into a group of 5? Okay, who's going to be the leader? 1 person puts their hand up. Okay, by that stage, you will have 1/3. You'll have about almost 30 people being one of those leaders who's organized everybody, give them a goal. Okay, what are you guys going to work on? What's your goal? And then you get together, you exchange WhatsApp, you exchange text messages, and then you meet back 14 days later, and you guys have had a goal. Like that's basically like the behavior design and action design. Real humans talking to each other, going and talking to your neighbors, having each other's text message groups, making sure that your project has like an end date. Like if it's a 6-month thing, that you're doing it for 6 months. You know, if it's 3 months, if it's 3 days. And then people are doing accountability between their groups. So they're doing this thing called like a commitment device or a pledge. Like I write, you know, like, Jessica, I promise to get my eco city built by the end of the year, and the little broken wind turbine, I promise to fix it. And then I've got this promise to you, and I'll feel like a loser if I don't come through on my promise, you know, and that's our sense of being a responsible, trustworthy person is incredibly strong. The idea of being like a responsible person rather than like a sort of environmental activist is a much stronger way to get to people.
And it's very hard to assign people responsibility in this day and age. So there's your formula that seems to be proven that on a small scale, if you can put people in a place of responsibility, they will act because there are pressures, rewards, and punishments and expectations that are important to individuals and the collective group to actually perform and complete goals and deliverables versus an individual who's just like, okay, go do this. Here, this I'll teach you about it. And then you decide if it's meaningful enough to you. In most cases, it's not because there's no expectations set by anyone else, right? Like we need external expectations to change behavior.
Oh, yeah, this individual approach, it's like, is not good. Like you've got NGOs and environmental NGOs and local cities and governments reaching out to people as if they are individuals, and also influencers and content creators as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're this sort of big umbrella and then you're like getting the message out. People have to get people into small groups. If you're not getting people into small groups, like nothing is happening. And a lot of the times nothing is happening. There's budgets and NGOs and it's really hard for them to get stuff to change. And people don't necessarily want to do it because it's really, it's more like emotional labor. It's like the human side. Yeah, of course you want to make a YouTube video or host a Zoom call. It's impersonal. Do you want to actually walk around your street and get to know your neighbors and contact the parents one by one and have those awkward like interpersonal dynamics where they have like a different personality to you, or like they're wearing clothes that you would totally never wear and they think you're weird, and you've got to like go through that like real stuff.
And it's getting harder and harder, right? Like people are getting worse and worse at those skills because we're doing everything sitting in front of screens on our own rather than having that communication going and having those harder conversations. It's hard to hear it. It's hard to change behavior. It's hard to not hold on to the facts and the beliefs that are more comfortable to hold on to and to actually be open to change. It gets to the broaden and build, like just the open, non-judgmental mindset of just being willing to have a conversation and open-minded enough to hear what the other person's saying. We're not good at it anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if we were ever good at it. But yeah, it should not be, all about your own tribe. Just listen to other people. And if I was on a podcast just a few days ago and a woman said, but what if you go and offer to design a permaculture garden for someone and then they open the door and they're wearing like a MAGA hat? And I'm just like, awesome. I would love that.
Right?
I like you can't see people in these like binary categories. Like if you want to build a permaculture garden, does it matter if they like wear the stupid hat or not? Like you need to be able to have the social diffusion happen to the other side. This is like something some vegans believe in that I think is really, really bad. That when you take your veganism to extra lengths of being the most serious vegan in the world, you now do not even talk to people who eat meat.
Right. I know, right? It's not.
It's like a whole other. That's like what you should absolutely not do.
Right.
If you want to be a vegan activist, you need to talk to 100% meat eaters all the time because that's how society changes the flow from one to the other. So you need to be creating more flow with people that have opposing belief systems and not stressing them out. Just focus on bonding and listening and finding stuff in common. Don't tell people that you think they're bad.
Well, there's also there's another layer to that, which I think, which we're losing these days, which is we make assumptions about others that we have nothing in common, right? Like that we're an absolute A or B binary. Whereas there's people in all walks of life and all political spectrums that are really interested in the environment and interested in healthy food and interested in clean water and interested in future of the earth, right? Like, so the judgments that we have about what hat they're wearing and not being the right person to talk to is the problem. So just don't assume we're in two different binary buckets.
But there's also this other, like, think of it as a bit of a meta concept, right? Like everybody is going to fit on a bell curve of their opinions about something. And people are going to create tribes between one and the other. And you're always going to think that your tribe is right. Otherwise you wouldn't be in it. Obviously my tribe is right. My tribe is morally superior and they're more stupid than me over in that tribe. So every time you hate on them, you lift yourself up.
Right. That's human nature, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you might think in today's day and age that this is sort of left-wing versus like Trump, Musk. And it's all because of like Trump and Musk, and all those people that support them are awful. And all of us who are like more left are like the good guys, right?
Yep.
But that's just one particular binary or bell curve that is around now. So if you were to take all those people and you were to like, they just say they disappeared or they went somewhere else, and you would have all of us, we would develop our own bell curve over something else.
Yeah, we'd start to split somewhere else.
Yeah, they'd be like, oh, there's the people who like, we're the people who work really hard, and they're the people who just want to meditate on the beach all day. Or they're those stupid meditate on the beach all day people. They don't contribute. We do all the hard work. We do all the childcare. Or like, there would be something else. And when you get into like,
it's actually reality. If you look at if we're just going to talk politics for a moment, if you look at the right and the left, or if you call it the Republicans and the Democrats, both factions are in terrible conflict between their sides. Like it's reality. It's not if we just take away the other side. It's that within the Democratic Party, we've got unbelievable conflict between the farther left woke and the centrists, right? Like we hate each other somehow. We've been told we should hate each other just within a party.
But this just keeps going down and down until it's more granular. Yeah. So you can just get any group of people, no matter who it is.
Yeah.
And depending on what the issue is, like if it's a bit controversial, eventually some bell curve will emerge where half of you are really into this thing.
Yeah.
Or like, these are the people that think it's okay to have plastic at the party, and these are the people who are like against plastic at the party, like, or that we have to only have fruit for the kids.
Right.
So that, you know, like you'll start fighting with each other and the same dynamic will emerge no matter like who you are. Like the vegans, there are probably massive factions between vegans that believe you should only ever talk to other vegans, and vegans that think that you should talk to anyone, and maybe they really, really hate each other. So like it doesn't matter how, if you take the other side away, like new sides will emerge. So what's the like point of it? Just stop getting into the side. I disacknowledge the concept of sides officially. Like I'm like, beautiful. I don't do sides. We're all here on the earth together, and we have a problem that needs to be solved as a group, and everybody thinks differently, and people's thoughts change. Like they're constantly evolving, like what people think. You know, 20 years, gay marriage was like not a thing, and now it's totally okay. So whatever it is going to be in a constant state of flow. So like don't get sucked into it, and don't get upset because people have a differing opinion to you, because people always will, no matter what is going on. And, you know, you just got to kind of be more zen and embrace everybody and look at the interconnectedness. And through the connectedness, you can just try to solve the problem instead of us versus them. I just think us versus them is never going to get anywhere. And it just has to go. We need like a massive evolution of consciousness to move away from us versus them.
Yeah. So, I mean, what it comes down to, I think, you know, what the question that's coming to mind for me is, how do you make caring about our earth and the environment the platform that doesn't have any politics involved, like doesn't have any us and them involved, that everybody's on the same page? Like what can you offer us, you know, words of wisdom that how do you just make this something that everyone needs to care about and not judge each other?
Oh, I don't know if I can say much more about it than what I just did. But just, you know, sort of like focus on the theme, focus on the values. Like if you're trying to build permaculture gardens, you know, you don't necessarily like have to get into climate change and gay marriage and abortion. Like they may often come sort of connected, but like if somebody thinks differently to you about those things, or you're trying to build vegetable gardens, just, you know, focus on the vegetable gardens. Like it doesn't need to be like a whole sort of thing. And, you know, connect with people on the stuff that you do have values on.
Yeah.
And, you know, people will evolve over time. Like if somebody doesn't realize something perhaps a bit more progressive, you know, they're 25 years old and they think, you know, like climate change is dumb. It's possible that in 10 years they might not think that anymore, that it's more of an evolution. It's not like they're on the other side and we're not. It's just that okay, the penny hasn't dropped. We don't need to like hate on them for the penny not dropped. Like it just might take them a while, and maybe like it'll never drop, and it will be their kids where it will drop, you know, like, you know,
importantly to your point, I was talking to somebody the other day on one of my episodes that we're no longer climate change deniers. We've literally shifted from, we have climate change, but we can't do anything about it. Now it's we can do anything about it or we can't do anything about it, versus the denial. And that wasn't that long ago. So it moves, like, you know, the whole mental set moves. And as long as we can stay, as you said, as long as we can stay focused on what we're working on and see that as a small positive piece and take action, like vegetable gardens, permaculture, then keep the rest of it out of the conversation and we can all communicate. So hugely important. Okay, Katie, you've been super generous. What are you working on now that we need to hear about? Because you've got all these amazing things going on.
My main thing at the moment is launching the School of Climate Action Design. So I've put all of my knowledge, my courses, I got multiple courses on behavior design, behavioral psychology, data-driven design theory, and just marketing in general that environmental groups need to know, as well as all of my projects. Like I've created so many tools over the years that environmental groups and local cities and governments, etc., can use in their communities. And I put it all into this 6-week coaching program called the School of Climate Action Design, which I'm hosting on Mighty Networks.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm doing. I am enrolling people in that, signing up, getting people to sign up for the wait list, putting academic experts, people who have PhDs in environmental psychology, giving guest workshops and specialists in marketing, so I can create a community where I can sort of teach what I've learned and help teach what I've learned more at scale and help mentor all of these awesome environmental and sustainability folks, my world, my community, and really help people like get to the next level. Because there's just so many mistakes people make. Like every single environmental campaign I see, I'm like, mistake, 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 mistake. That's why it's not working. After you've done this for a while, it starts to be clear. And I'm hoping to take people through that process, teach them about all of the, behavior mapping, hero's journey storytelling, how to build marketing funnels, UI, UX, cognitive load, gamification, all of that. And then I have this community, this platform in which I can keep developing and sharing more behavior tools over the years.
Yeah, I was going to say,
my big thing.
Like the podcast, I would say, if you're targeting that coaching program towards people in the environmental space, that's a beautiful place for everybody to be together in conversation. But if you look at your podcast, you're offering so many marketing and business development tools that are stand strongly on their own, unrelated to the environment, like for anybody who's interested in business or in relationships or changing behavior about anything around, involving the people around them or themselves, individual or collective. So I would say, go to Katie's podcast of How to Save the World. It's not only about the environment. It's really about moving forward in anything you're doing. So you've got both sides.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really set it out to be something that was about startups or entrepreneurship, but inevitably, as a sort of a change maker, you are an entrepreneur. Like you're an entrepreneur and an environmental activist at the same time. So you're going through all of the lessons to do with like, how do you capture attention? How do you sign people up? How do you manage your own emotions? How do you manage teams? How do you manage funding? And, like you have to learn all that stuff too. You don't get out of you'll sort of get some like free pass on all of that stuff. But then you also have this other kind of simultaneous equation that you can't just make money like a regular business. And usually businesses have a kind of an environmental impact. So we're kind of like got the extra challenge of being a bit working against the grain of capitalism and having to actually really make an impact. So there's more to learn. But yeah, I mean, I've been either self-employed or a startup CEO for more than 20 years now. I've been funded, not funded, bootstrapped, consultant, courses, content creator, public speaker. Like I've been around the block of having to capture attention from a lot of people and then having to scale up revenue and then also actually like make change happen. So yeah, inevitably a lot of the stuff I teach is probably half startup marketing and design and half actual like environmental psychology, because they're sort of a Venn diagram. We kind of end up doing both at the same time.
Yeah. And it's about going from education to action. So if you want to just do something instead of sit around by yourself or participate in something, there's so much there in the work that you do. So, and I so appreciate that. Like there's this energy of community and action and doing and imagination and creativity and curiosity and fun. Like there's just so much color and fun in everything that you put out there. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for appreciating it.
It's always so much fun chatting with you. So Katie, I look forward to more. And thank you so much for being here and for sharing some of the amazing stuff that you're working on and giving us some tools to just get stuff done without being afraid to get stuff done, right? Like to just sit in the quiet space, but to like move forward and do. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you for having me. And Mochi says thank you as well. He says thank you.
Thank you, Mochi. She is one quiet dog.
Yeah, she didn't do any snoring in this
No.
today, so she did a good job.
Thank you.
This has been a production of BLI Studios, produced by me, Kai. Follow along with our other BLI produced shows at balancinglifesissues.com/podcast-BLI. Got an idea for the show? Email me, Kai, at balancinglifesissues.com. And don't forget to stay in touch with your host, Jessica, at jessica@winwinwinmindset.com. Anything else to add, Miles?
Yeah.